let's say a musician is at a moment where they're going to do their first real photo shoot, or they have an important concert, and they have a, they have something significant that's happening, and they want to take a big step forward, but they don't know where to begin. What advice do you have?
So what I use for any preparation for photo shoots is I create a mood board, and I do this on Pinterest. I'm a huge fan because it allows you, first of all, it's like just a base of every single image that exists in the world, but you can make boards specifically and group them into sections. So what I would advise is just go on there like very loosely if it's your first time, and just start like looking up other musicians. Look at how they're being portrayed. What images do you like? Start saving those. It could be even images of like paintings, like just collect visuals that you are gravitating towards. And from that, like after you've exhausted the process, you step back and look at what you've saved, and you will notice your patterns. Like guaranteed, whether it's like a color pattern that you keep going back to, or a style that you keep going back to. And then from there, you can kind of dive deeper into it and dissect like, okay, so this is more along the lines of what I want. And then from there, if you're working with, for like a photo shoot, I would say do your research with photographers. Like find someone where you like the photos that they're taking, not just because they have a camera, because a lot of people have a camera. And look, like also save pictures from the ones that they've actually taken and ones that you like. And then when you show a mood board to a photographer, it gives them a better idea, like visual guidelines of like, okay, I see like this is kind of a better lighting for this person. Like this is the mood that they're trying to express.
So in a field that feels a little bit conservative, what can musicians do that want to exercise a bit more creativity?
So I think, you approach your performance gear with a little bit more creativity. You start thinking of alternate ways you can interpret that. But within, everyone is aware of what formal wear looks like, what's been done. So look at what you wear off stage and kind of find what are the parts of that are consistent. What do you like best about it? Is it color? Are you really attracted to like bold colors? Are you attracted to sparkles? And think about like, well, how can I bring that into my playing? So maybe it's wearing a suit that has like sparkles on the lapel, or maybe you wear like a pin that brings in something more of your personality, or a pop of color, pocket squares, things like that. So it's like, it doesn't always have to be like completely Elton John. You can trickle it in and, and get your point across. It's more subtle than you think.
Somebody that presents concerts, and I have an audience that expands a whole age range. I sort of get excited when I see an artist that has taken a little bit of a risk or really made an individual statement with something they're wearing, because I feel like there's a part of themselves that's stepping forward, and I just find that very exciting. I also know that it might sort of challenge some of the folks in the audience, and I think that there is a balance. There's also a way that, again, when somebody's authentic on stage and they're talking and they're connecting with the audience, that if you find some of that challenging, if you come from a more traditional viewpoint on the classical music field, you can often see past it to the person. And I know there is a balance, but I love it when people are showing a bit more of who they are on stage.
Especially if that is something that you are genuinely into,
yeah.
I think you should absolutely express it on stage. And like, once again, it's okay to be simple and conservative, because that guaranteed it will probably be a part of your playing style anyway. Maybe you're more quiet and elegant, but there are people who, like I've worked with some of your musicians who are super into style, and they really know themselves, and there's a fear of expressing that on stage. But I think if you're going to push the music form forward, you almost have to challenge that, because the music has been around for hundreds of years, and we're all playing the same thing, and it's beautiful. But like, how do you make that relevant? It has to be about the musician.
Yeah, and there's no question that when you look at other art forms and the way that they handle style, whether it's how they present themselves online, how they're cultivating an audience, how they're packaging the tickets they're selling or the albums they're selling, there's a lot more creativity and fun, and it's a bigger package in things outside of classical music. And it goes back to something you said at the very beginning of the conversation, which is classical music may not think about this enough.
Yeah, and I mean, really, you should start looking to other art forms as a way of like, not only expanding like your audience, but also just future collaborations and possibilities where classical musicians could work with brands. Because right now it's like, it's not really considered that much because it's such a narrow look, you know? But if you, like pop rock stars, celebrities, the branding comes from them. It comes from how they're connecting to audience, and that's why companies want to work with them, because they want the people who are paying attention to them. So if you think of it like, obviously not about being a sellout, but just more about like, how do you reach more people? It's really just about connecting with people, and like, that's about expressing yourself, and it can be beyond your instrument, which is really nice. If you're a performer, you have that, it's an opportunity to do that.
I've heard you give advice to young musicians that they should find a little bit of their everyday style that can show up on stage, and what they do on stage should also feed into their everyday style a little bit. I have seen many young musicians immediately change after a concert and show up at the reception in jeans and sneakers when the audience is there in their dressed up concert attire. Thoughts about how you find cohesion between what you do on stage and what you do in the rest of your life?
Yes, I think the three, it's also respecting like the environment you're in. So like, if your off stage attire is completely sweatpants and a sweatshirt, consider where you're going. If you're going to be at a place that is like, you know, more formal, maybe wear sneakers with your suit. I mean, that is completely acceptable. Bring some of that like streetwear attire into something that's more tailored. It's about like being a little bit more creative about mixing media and not being afraid to do so, because as much as like, yes, full expression is great, you also still want to think about the impression that you're making and the audience that you're interacting with. So if you consider that, whatever that means to you, you know, it's like, if you want to be taken seriously, or you're speaking to donors, for instance, and you want them to feel a certain way, consider how you would feel if you were talking to someone dressed in sweatpants and a sweatshirt in that context. Like, kind of take it out of your own head.
And when you go to a photo shoot, what sort of outfits do you bring and prepare? How do you represent those different parts of who you are?
So to make it easy to understand, I say, like, think about it in 3 buckets. So one, what is the way you interpret like classical performance wear? So where are these going? Your pictures are going to be in programs. If you're playing at Carnegie, that's more conservative venue space. What kind of photo would you want to show up in there? Then you also need photos for your website, you know, and I think second bucket is something that is of like a mix of your onstage and offstage. So that's kind of mixing in like a bit of your personality. That's where the mixed media kind of comes in. And then third bucket being what you wear offstage, something that's a little bit more personal to you, for 2 reasons. One, if you're doing your own programming and you want something a little bit more casual, and also chances are if you're wearing your own clothes, something that you are naturally fit and comfortable in, the photo will express more of you than any of the other photos. And especially in photo shoots, it's not a full editorial. So what the best photo shoots are capturing your personality. And if we can get that out of you because you're wearing your favorite t-shirt, then it is extremely effective.
Musicians need a team of people to support them in their career. They work with publicists, they work with somebody that helps them with the website, they might work with somebody that's helping them with photography and social media, or how they're showing up on social media. Where does a stylist factor into this team of support for a musician?
So I would recommend, if you've never worked with the stylist before, do it when you're going to have your photo shoot for either promo photos or an album release, something like that, because that's a great opportunity to like really think intentionally about what you want to look like, how you want to be represented. And that's when I work with classical musicians, I have a consultation before and we like talk through all of this. It's almost like a bit of PR, like what's your story and how can we represent this in pictures? And like, then we build a mood board together. And it's like, just, I think if you're going to invest the money, do it at a time where there's like a clear outcome. You know, you need to have these photos and you want those photos to last. So, and then going forward, if you if you have like, if you're going on tour and you're playing, or you're going to be at like very fancy galas, that's another time that's good to bring in professional help just to have access to better clothes. Like, even if you're really good at what you wear, you might need, something above your budget level, and that can be borrowed if it's in the right situation where you're getting enough press and exposure.
Faye, could you talk a bit about how, as a stylist, you've worked with classical musicians? What's your process?
So with classical, I like to, first, most of them are not that familiar with like how to approach styles. So I do an hour Zoom, and we go through, I send them a questionnaire, and one of the questions on there is like to consider their branding. Like, what are 3 to 4 high level words that you want people to associate with the pictures that they see? And in that way, it kind of gives me like a setting of the mood. So from there, like we'll discuss, we'll go through your closet, we'll look at things like, what are your favorite things to wear, and we'll make outfits together over Zoom. And then we'll build a mood board. From the answers, from talking to that person, I build imagery of what I think is like the high level style goal for this person. And that's great because it gives like everyone a visual guideline, and it opens up your eyes to like, oh, I never considered that. And then with classical musicians, to like cater to their budget, I have them bring their clothes and I style them on set. So I'll mix and match clothing that they have. So by the end of it, they actually walk away with new outfits. And if there's anything that's truly needed and they have budget for that, then I send suggestions for them to buy things, to like fill in those missing pieces.
At YCA, we've sent a number of artists to you in advance of photo shoots to sort of work on styling, and they've never had this in their life before, and they come back sort of glowing.
Awesome.
They're like, that was amazing. I learned so many things about myself, and there was recommendations, and I went out and bought this shirt, and I love this shirt, and I feel great in it. And we saw the change in the results so quickly. I don't think we will ever try to do a photo shoot again without some sort of styling in advance. When you think about the hundreds, if not thousands of dollars that go into a photo shoot and how everything comes down to that one afternoon, to miss that component in advance just seems like a huge mistake. And then from that photo shoot, those artists will then take that onto the stage.
Yeah.
So I know you have a heart for making sure that you spend some of your time helping young musicians who are new to this, and that's how young concert artists got involved in working with you, and I think that's just fabulous.
Thank you. No, it's really nice to hear that, because that's the intention, is like, I hope that from these sessions that they take that and they run with it. It's really, in a lot of cases, it's about giving them agency, because it's already there. It's just like putting a light on like, oh, I can do that? Like, yeah, you can do it. And then they find their own way to express it. And it's like, I can't wait to see like more people like find their version of what that looks like.
And it's so, as I've said before, it is such a big part of when a musician walks out on stage. They've practiced, their artistry is magnificent, but they own the stage, they own the space. There's this incredible connection with the audience before a note is played, and then the artistry comes and it backs up everything that you felt. We've covered so many different topics, but I wonder as we wrap up, is there one really big idea you'd love for us all to take away?
Yes, is that style is not an abstraction. It's not something that some people have and some people don't. We all have it. It is our most primal form of communication, because it is like, clothing is essentially protection, but how you choose those clothes are like, that is your style. And I think like when you recognize that this is something I already have, and you just have to find a way to develop it, something that evolves with like your lifestyle and as you mature, then it's not so out of reach.
Where can people learn about your work?
Well, you can find it on my website, which is everydayfaye.com, or Instagram. That's the way of the world. Also, everydayfaye. I'm pretty consistent with my branding. But feel free to get in touch. And I have like separate packages for classical musicians, and there's so many ways to work with people now.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.